Hello, teachers. So I just wanted to go over how to make a mock CAASPP exam using the new question banks that I made in our Schoology PLC group. This is great because now you can pick multiple questions from different targets to make a CAASPP exam that looks like the real CAASPP, or as much as we can make it. In order to choose questions from the different question banks, you're going to go ahead and add materials. And because this is a test or quiz, you're going to click Add Test or Quiz. You're going to give it a name. I might just call mine CAASPP Practice. You can call yours whatever you want to call it. I'm going to give it a due date, as I normally would. And I can give it whatever kind of point value I want. Maybe I only want this to be worth 25 points. And I'm going to give it a category. Sometimes people have tests, quizzes, so on and so forth. And I'm going to go ahead and click Create. And now I'm ready to pick and choose. And I might have to do this a couple of times just because there's different question banks for different targets. So in order to get to the question banks and choose questions, I'm going to click on Add Question, and I'm going to go down to From Question Banks. I'm going to click on individual questions, and because this is in a group resource, I'm going to go ahead over here and click on groups and find our English PLC folder. At the very bottom, I've added a new white folder that says CAASPP Practice. And you can see we have the 4 different subject areas: reading, writing, listening, and research and inquiry. I'm going to go ahead and pick one from each one just so you can see what this looks like. But just keep in mind that you do want to be keeping track of the questions that you have used. So I'm going to go ahead, and I have all the different targets for reading right here for literary texts and for informational text. So I'm going to go ahead and click on a target for informational text, and here's the question in itself. I do want to make sure that this is not a 2-part question. I need to be really careful about 2-part questions. I can pick them, but I have to make sure that I choose both part A and part B. So keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. I'm going to go ahead and make this 5 points. I could change this later if I wanted to, and I am going to add that question. It already has the standards associated with it. I can see that this is a multiple choice question, and I'm going to go ahead and choose some other questions. I'm just going to walk through this again. Add question from question banks. I'm going to add from the listening one this time so you can see what this looks like. But there's only one target in this one, so that's okay. And I'm going to go ahead and choose this first one, 5 points, add that question. And I'm going to keep adding them until I have what I need to have. So I'm going to come back and show you the finished one in just a second and how to set up settings. So I'm going to go through and just add about 3 more questions. So I've chosen 5 different questions. You can see right up here. And I made them 5 points each. And so now I want to go to my settings. Here's the thing. You want to set your enable or disable. You can change that or do that live if you want to. You can choose to have a time limit if you want to, and I like to leave the attempt limit the same. What you want to make sure that you're doing, especially if you have questions that have a part A and a part B, you do not want to randomize the order of the questions. Just because part A then and part B, they're 2 separate questions even though they belong together, so they won't be next to each other. I highly recommend that you do not randomize the order. The answer choices for many of these questions are already randomized, so hopefully that would negate any kind of cheating. I also highly recommend that instead of using page breaks, that you do 1 question per page. This is going to make it look more like the CAASPP exam, and I'm going to show you what this looks like in just a second. And as always, you do want to make it resumable, and you can choose to have the students view the submission or not. I'm going to go ahead and save those changes, and then I'm going to do a preview so you can see what this looks like. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and do this as if I were a student, and I'm going to show you what that looks like, as well as anything I might need to grade and how to look at mastery. So 1 second. So I'm on my student account right now, and I can see the CAASPP practice test is right there. So this is how it would look like for your students. I'm going to go ahead and click Start New Attempt. And here's question 1. Notice how it's just this question, which is really nice. And I can see what question I'm on and how many questions I have left. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read, and I'm going to go ahead and select 2. I'm really just picking at random right now, just so I can show you what this is, and it is saved. There's also a listening component. I did take the listening component, so you may want to, if you've had a listening component question put on there, make sure you warn your students to use headphones. So they would just click play once their headphones are in.
The following presentation is from an article in CAASPP magazine.
And they could go back and listen to this however many times that they need to do this. In order to listen, they're going to pick a question or an answer, and they're going to go to the next page. They're going to pick another 2 here. And then I did make one where they would have to type in something. So this one is subjective. So most of these questions are going to grade themselves, but you may need to do some things here and there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on next page. There's one more question here. And here we go. I might not have gotten any of them right. I'm going to go ahead and submit that assessment. And then I'm going to go back and show you what this looks like on the teacher's end. So I'm back on my teacher's account, and because I knew that there was one that I needed to grade, I'm going to go ahead and do that. There it is. I'm going to click View Attempt. And an easy way to get to just that one question that I knew was subjective is to click View by Question. And I knew that it was the conclusion one, and it's a short answer essay question. So I'm going to go ahead and click View Responses, and I'd be able to see all of my students' responses right here. I'm going to go ahead and give that a 5, and we're going to save those changes. And if I go to results now, again, I click on results, I can see that this one does have a grade. So now once all of your students have been graded, here's where it gets really interesting. You can, of course, look at the statistics for your class to see where your students fall. That's fine. But because we added the standards, or I added the standards into each question, I'm going to go ahead and click over here to Mastery. And I can find out, okay, these were the 4 questions. 2 of them were the same standard. I can see who's achieving mastery and who isn't. So those other questions I was completely wrong on, but I did grade that one, and I can click on this to see where each question standard is coming from. So this one was from the CAASPP. And I could go ahead and view that learning objective to see what